Hello, friends and followers. I'm Jeremy Osterberger with Big Magazine. Joining me today is Chris Jahn, President and CEO of the American Chemistry Council. Chris, how are you and welcome?
Well, always good to be with you, Jeremy.
Yeah, you're always great about jumping on, Chris, and giving us some updates intermittently. And just thank you so much for your time. Are you in Virginia today?
I'm in Virginia today. Yep.
All right, man. Fighting the good fight, Chris. So thanks for being here, man. So mid-year, we were in a tough place for chemicals, Chris. Capital spending had slowed. We dealt with production outages due to weather-related disruptions in Q1. We faced some declines in kind of basic agricultural chemicals in Q2 that offset gains in some other categories. So as we get closer to the end of the year, how would you describe the state of the chemical industry currently?
Currently, we face some short-term economic headwinds, but long-term, we're really optimistic about the future of American chemistry, particularly if government regulatory conditions don't further deteriorate. So we're coming to an end of a long destocking cycle, but we're still facing weak demand both here domestically and abroad. And as you well know, Jeremy, almost all of our production goes into the industrial sector, which is struggling. About 30% of American chemistry is exported, and recent indicators show that it's pretty soft demand in a lot of different manufacturing economies across the world. But back here in the U.S., our economic sentiment index that we have here at the American Chemistry Council indicates that domestic end-use customers are also have weak demand. So, we've got inventories in a better position heading into the fourth quarter here, and we're cautiously optimistic the worst is behind us, and we're looking forward to 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. And that seems to be the sentiment from the folks that we communicate with on a regular basis as well. So, would you still say that U.S. is the best place to invest in chemical manufacturing, Chris? Talk a little bit globally and how attractive is the U.S. right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the best place in the world to invest. And we've got a clear advantage in feedstocks and other energy compared to the rest of the world. We've got ample shale gas reserves, and that gives us a big advantage competing against whether it's Europe, Middle East, or China. We also, on top of that, have once-in-a-generation laws on the books now with the bipartisan infrastructure law, with the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science Act. So there's a tremendous investment in domestic manufacturing in the U.S. for batteries, electric vehicles, charging infrastructure, semiconductors, and the list goes on and on. So there's a lot of cool opportunities for our members going forward. And if you look at, think back to the pandemic and some of the supply chain disruptions that we all faced, that's also a factor in driving some reshoring of manufacturing here to the U.S. And so when that construction is done, there are going to be a lot of opportunities for United States chemistry. And so we're pretty bullish on the long term. Just to give you a scope of the investment that our industry has made in this country over the past decade or so, since 2010, there's $135 billion in nearly 300 projects here in the U.S. that's already been put in place. We're currently looking at about 20 projects, or about $20 billion that are currently under construction. And there are close to 40 more projects and about $50 billion worth of investment that are in the planning stages right now. So we've invested here in the U.S., and we will continue to invest in the U.S. going forward. But we got to make sure that the rising regulatory impact, particularly driven by the Biden administration, doesn't fumble this opportunity. And, that investment can be made in other places in the world, and we got to make sure we don't mess it up.
That's right. So dig into that a little bit more, Chris, and that what has to happen, in your opinion, and what could impact our manufacturers here, maybe heading into next year, election year, coming upon us here. What is happening in DC that could impact our chemical manufacturing sector?
Yeah. So as I kind of alluded to in the previous answer, we've seen a surge in new restrictions and proposed regulations from the Biden administration could negatively impact our industry. So that the chemical sector is already the most heavily regulated subsector in all American manufacturing. So on top of this, the Biden administration has put forward more than a dozen proposals that would increase our industry's compliance cost by 50%, which is already in the billions of dollars. So, some of these restrictions would ban specific chemistries or they'd regulate them at such a level that their manufacture would be virtually impossible here in the United States. And so the impact of that, which is what all Americans should care about, it really impacted a lot of vital technologies that I've already mentioned: semiconductors, modern healthcare applications, electric vehicles. And if we want to make more things in this country, we've got to take a different approach to regulations on our industry.
Chris, if folks hear what you're saying and want to agree with you, what's your recommendation for them to get involved?
So look, being an active participant in our election process is something that is a right for all Americans, but I happen to believe it's a duty for all Americans. And so as we get closer to another big election, less than a year from now, I'd remind our friends in both the Democratic and Republican Party that they need to be careful and keep in mind that Americans support the chemical sector and they support American manufacturing. In fact, Jeremy, a recent poll showed that about 2/3 of Americans understand that the chemical industry is essential to achieving national priorities. And so they understand how important we are to the cost of living, to the U.S. economy, the healthcare system that our nation provides, the environment, and even our competitiveness against China. So I'd ask your listeners and viewers to make sure that they're paying attention to who they elect to Congress, who they elect as president of the United States.
Yeah, man, you guys do a great job too. I follow the ACC newsletter that's emailed to me. I think it's fantastic. I read the first couple of paragraphs of that thing every single time it comes out. So kudos to you and the team for getting that out as well. So.
Appreciate that.
And look, so Chris, the Treasury Department is expected to release guidance for the Inflation Reduction Act's hydrogen tax credit by the end of the year. That's actually, I read that in your newsletter, but some folks say that guidance is going to be delayed into 2024. Not just that hydrogen tax credit, but bigger picture, what are the big things that you would like to see policymakers do maybe between now and the election upcoming?
Yeah. So I've got, as we come to the holiday times here, I've got a Christmas wish list.
Okay.
Administration and Congress. And nice. So, there's a few things on it, and having them move quickly on hydrogen, you can't do that without our members. We've got a number of ACC member companies that are really driving that space forward. So getting that policy right is really important. But go back to what I said previously. We really want the Biden administration to take the chemical industry out of its crosshairs and move forward in a way that allows us to continue to manufacture here, to address some of the world's biggest challenges in clean air, clean water, addressing climate change. And, to be able to do that, we've got to have agencies like EPA take a fresh look at how they look at both existing chemistries, as well as moving much more quickly to approve new innovative products that can help us create new products to, move manufacturing forward in our country. The other couple of things on my wish list are things that you may not have heard about, something like renewing the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standards Bill. And we think that's something particularly important given the strife and unrest all across the world right now. And we'd sure love the Surface Transportation Board to address important rail reforms that would help our industry. And so those are just a few things on a longer list that I'll be sending to Santa Claus pretty soon here.
I love it, man. So most kids are asking for candy canes and toys. Chris, you're asking for regulatory policy for Christmas. I love it, man. It's great.
Yes, that's the life I've chosen, for better or worse, here in Washington, D.C.
That's awesome. Well, Chris, man, thank you for sharing your wish list with us, and you're always welcome to do so. And thank you so much for your time today.
Happy holidays to you and yours.
You too, Chris. And for all our viewers out there, if you'd like more videos, news, and podcasts, visit bicmagazine.com. And remember, it's what we do together that counts.